welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dante. It's great to be here.
Glad to have you, my friend. It's been probably maybe a good 4, 5, 6 months since we did something together. We had a sort of a little project going, and that definitely turned out very well. Always a pleasure to see you, work with you. You're very sought after as a keyboardist, and you know what you do on the acoustic and the electric. It always is magnifying, and I think that's probably why your phone, it just blows up. But you know what a lot of people want to know though is where it all began for you. So if you could take us back to the very beginning, how did you get your start, and where were you, you know, in the globe when it all came together?
Okay, let's see. Well, I was born in Colorado and grew up there.
Okay. And what part?
Boulder.
Okay.
Boulder, Colorado. And, you know, I took piano lessons when I was a kid, and my mom played the guitar, and I learned how to play the campfire chords.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up in kind of like, you know, my mom would sing folk songs and stuff like that, and she also played classical guitar. And then I took lessons, and I actually went to school in Colorado and for a degree in classical music.
Okay.
And then what happened? Then I moved to Boston. And I think my first professional gigs were in reggae when I lived in France. So I went to France after Boston.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, started playing reggae.
So just everywhere, huh? Everywhere in your music.
Yeah. And then after the reggae stint in France, I started, and also I played a little bit of blues in France. Everybody likes Americans because in Europe. And then I came back here to San Diego after that, and that is when I met Lafayette Falquet, San Diego guy that's been around a long time, and started playing in his blues band. Okay. And then, whatever, I've been playing. It just
took off from there.
Huh? Yes. Yeah, I've played a lot of different things since then.
Took off. Okay, so you're obviously very diverse in musically. Would you say that you have a preference for one style or the other?
I would say that I have a preference for jazz.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that is a good preference to have. And, you know, I think because it encompasses so many different things, you know, everything pulls from that at some point. You know, it's definitely all connected. As a jazz player, in your heart, you know, what are your major influences on the piano?
Ooh, well, in my opinion, Herbie Hancock is the king of jazz piano. So he's someone I admire greatly. But, you know, when I first started listening to jazz, I liked Oscar Peterson a lot. He's also an amazing, I mean, they're all amazing. And a guy that I really liked in the beginning, who really helped me understand because he was more blues-based, was Gene Harris. Okay. So, yeah, there's so many great jazz pianists out there, but those three are just three of my favorites. Okay, wonderful. How would you describe your style musically? I think I'm kind of blues-based myself. I've played a lot of blues. So blues-based and ever trying to expand from there. Okay, awesome. Did you go to school for music? I did. I went, like I said, for the classical. I got a degree in, it was actually called a Bachelor of Arts in Music. It was this odd degree that I played classical piano, and then I had to write this thesis. Okay. So that's what and now I'm back in school. As a matter of fact, I'm at SDSU in the jazz program. Wonderful. Getting a master's there. So, wonderful. Yeah, it's fun. Wonderful. What's that like? Is it a challenge for you, or is it just a piece of cake? No, it's definitely a challenge. First of all, those kids are like they're, you know, they're little sponges, and they're so sweet, and they're great players and everything. So it's been a challenge for me because I didn't really do any undergrad in jazz, so I'm kind of catching up. But it's really fun. We get to write our own things, and you know, as much as you want to put into it, you can get out of, or at least I found I can get out of it. So we're playing with Chris Potter next month. So. You can't beat that. No. That's royalty in the jazz world. Yes, yeah. So I'm having a great time going back to school and kind of learning things that I never did learn before. Is that going to be more of a big ensemble backing up Chris Potter? Yeah, it's the Jazz Ensemble 1. It's the big band of the school. So who's the director of your program there? Well, for many years it was Bill Yeager. Okay. But he just retired, and so we have an interim director who's great, Carl Sukup, and he's leading the big band right now. So
Okay. I was told that Bob Magnuson on bass was one of the instructors there. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I think he is.
Okay.
I don't really know, but I've heard tell that
Okay,
he
you've heard
is
tell.
on
Okay.
on the faculty. Yeah.
I've gotcha. What kind of things do they have you doing in that program there that you can say are definitely, rooted in a real world experience because you are a real world player. You're out there doing it, and a lot of the other students probably are just looking at the theory aspect of it. But can you say that a lot that you're learning you can apply to, hey, I'm already doing this, or what would you say to that?
I know what you're talking about. Like you could just like study a bunch of theory, and then your playing will sound like your, like your theory, and that's not good. So you want to have your music be something that people can relate to, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I found really useful is in the ensembles, I've been allowed to bring my original compositions in and have them play it, and that's good for me learning like, oh, this sounds good there, this, instrumentation and all that stuff. So that's been great. I'm psyched to do it more of it, but it's pulling together different skills. I had to learn the program to Sibelius, where
Oh yes, yeah, for notation.
Yeah, so
Okay.
little skills like that I'm sort of pulling together, and I think that's useful for real world if you want to get your compositions out there and be able to hand people a chart, things like that.
That is a great point, and what you might learn in a theoretical, context, and how it could apply to a real world situation to sort of save a few steps of time, basically.
Yeah. No, I think it's good, and you're right. There is nothing quite like just gigging. Like that's the best, truly the best way to get yourself good at something.
Okay, absolutely. Can you say that in your group of students that you have noticed a few people that are on the horizon or on the radar, someone to look for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talent there and a lot of young people that are just, and then it also seems like there are some alumni that sort of come back, touch base, come back, they'll fill in for someone if they can't make the gig. But yeah, there's a lot of, there's a young sax player, Dylan Soto.
Okay.
He's coming up, look for that name.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent. I mean, it's a good thing that we have music schools because now there aren't as many jazz gigs as there used to be.
Sure.
It's a place, I mean, that's too bad, but at least there's some place where talented people are still coming.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll definitely be on the horizon for Dylan. And is he a tenor player?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So I'm sure he'll be checking out the Chris Potter gig.
Yeah, I think he will be. Yeah. So
that's awesome. You mentioned compositions earlier. And you also talked about the fact that, you would put yourself, even as a jazz artist, a little bit more in the bluesy category.
Right.
Okay. Would you say that your compositions are definitely sort of cut from that cloth?
Yeah, I think there's a blues element to them for sure. Not all of them. Some of them have turned out to be a little more Latinish, but I think I can't get away from having some blues just kind of show through. But yeah.
Okay. As a soloist yourself, what is your motivation if you're taking a solo? What do you think about? How does it all come together?
I feel like the best soloists are singing through their instrument. So that's what I strive to do.
Okay.
So I've had trouble in the past sort of sounding a little too mechanical myself. So
okay.
I really do appreciate it when someone really just sounds like they're naturally singing and they're doing it through their instrument.
Okay. Just sort of flows.
Yeah.
Okay. Give us some examples of who you think flows good. We know you like Herbie, but who else do you like in that area?
You know who is great and lives in LA? I'm thinking about this because he just had a gig here recently. Have you heard of Frank McComb?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
He literally plays, anything. He can sing anything, and then he can play anything too. So he's a good example of that. But I want to mention a couple other people from SDSU instead of just one guy.
Sure.
Rudy Marquez is a great guitarist.
Okay.
And there's a drummer, Joanna. I can't remember her last name, but she's a great drummer. And there's a young bass player, Brendan Beck, I think his name is. He is to watch out for too.
We're going to watch for all of those
people. Okay. And there's more. I just can't name them all.
The Young Lions, right?
Well, they're not the Young Lions. Although I don't know if they were. I don't think so. It's a different thing. But yeah, they are.
Okay. Just some young players to watch for.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Awesome. As a lady, what kind of struggles do you think you've had that you find a little bit unique that maybe a gentleman in the area wouldn't have had?
Well, I think also since I'm a older lady, I think maybe I sort of internalized sort of, be quiet and don't speak up, be nice. I sort of internalized that to the point where when you try to express yourself and do those other, and, break some rules,
Okay.
maybe that came a little more, with more difficulty for me. So,
Okay. 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 So
yeah.
you found it difficult to sort of assert yourself? Is that what you're saying?
I think so, and I think it's been this sort of internalized things from from a little girl onward, sort of a cultural thing that I think that is. I mean, I think probably more women. That's more of a female thing, that women have to overcome. Not all women, and maybe more my generation. I think the younger generation is a little different.
Okay. All right. Do you have students yourself?
Not right now.
Okay. Have you ever had students?
I have had students in the past, and I used to have students when my kids were young, and I remember I said, well, I can't have students and gig. I'm spending no time with my kids, so I'm not going to teach anymore. I'm just going to gig and be with my kids. And then my youngest daughter said, Mom, that was the most fun when you taught lessons. I used to play with all the kids and everything. Why'd you stop doing that? So, but teaching is a big energy. You use a lot of energy teaching, so
Okay.
I don't have that energy right now.
I understand.
But I admire teachers; they are my heroes.
Yes, yes, and rightfully, we get our inspiration from players and from those that give instruction, right?
Yes, a great teacher can change lives, so I admire them.
What is something that that you've learned in school that was passed down from you from a teacher? Anything in particular you could share?
Well, in my case, I sort of learned in a weird way. Like I would hear a jazz or any piece, and I would learn it exactly the way it was on the record and play it just that way. And one of my professors said, maybe you should just, listen to it and find the things you like, and you can learn those, but you don't have to do exactly what they do, And so
you're talking about taking a solo like verbatim?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would learn the solo exactly like that, and then I wouldn't. It was like I learned that one big whole piece, and I wouldn't really understand, oh, you can use that to influence your own playing, but express yourself, and you can use these things.
Good point.
I mean, it seems obvious, but I was sort of stuck in this thing where I felt like I had to learn exactly what they did and do it just like that, and so.
That's a very good point. I've known other players that I thought it was interesting, in a good way, that when they would take solos in certain tunes, it would be like almost note for note of,
right.
Wow, it's like, how do they get it exactly that way? I mean, are they transcribing it and just playing it that way? But at the end of the day, we have to be ourselves.
Right.
As you say, and many other greats say, you want to be lyrical, you want to express yourself as if you're singing. You want to borrow from other people to a certain extent, but still express yourself in there.
Right. I mean, you want to know the language, but you don't want to say someone else's exact speech. So just learning, I really feel like jazz is a language, and all music is a language. But
yes.
Sort of being fluent and being expressive and being original in a language is quite a quest.
Okay.
So. I
gotcha. When's the last time you've been back to your hometown, and what's the music scene like there?
I was there, I think this summer, and it's an interesting. Right above Boulder, there's a little town that has a bunch of bluegrass and stuff like that. And then there are some bands that have come out of that area, like one's called Leftover Salmon. I don't know if you ever heard of them. I had not, but they're kind of well known. And then something about String Cheese, another band. There's some bands that...
Some interesting names in Boulder.
Yeah, and I should know the name of that band. But it's kind of... What was it? Oh, you asked me about the scene there?
Yeah, the scene.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like... I think there's a scene for sure.
Okay.
I have a friend that plays in the Aspen area, and there, certainly in Aspen there are gigs. It's a little different. Maybe not as much soul and R&B in Boulder per se, but I think Denver has its scene where that's happening, where there's some jazz and stuff like that.
Oh, well, most definitely,
yeah.
Definitely. I've done some gigs in Denver myself, so definitely.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that note. Would you say that the pandemic that is possibly kind of sort of ending, affected you musically? In other words, were you doing things online like a lot of artists, or just stopped doing music at all, like completely?
Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, I thought this actually has a silver lining because I'm going to work really hard and be really productive and do all this stuff. And then I just like wasted, several months. And then I started going to school.
Okay.
And so I was doing Zoom things on school and everything. I feel like I was fairly wasteful of my time during the pandemic because I couldn't see the long game. Like, yes, this is your chance to really shed and work on things. I did a little of that, and then I was in school. So I don't know. I think it put me back as far as doing gigs because gigs are what keep you sharp. And, not having gigs did not help me, So I'm glad that gigs are coming back. That's what I have to say about that.
Okay. Are you doing any recording these days? Any particular projects you're recording on, or yourself or someone else?
Well, I think I'm going to record a couple originals after this semester is done. I'll probably go into the studio and do a couple of those.
Okay.
And then I think for school, that we'll record like our concerts or whatever. But that's all that I have on the horizon.
Okay. All right. And around town, you have any gigs coming up around town? Anything you'd want people to know and come check you out?
Well,
I think you're doing something later today, right?
I do have a gig today at the Roxy in Encinitas.
Okay.
So I'm doing gigs sometimes where I'm playing the bass with the left hand and doing the stuff with the right hand, the music with the right hand, because I feel like that's a skill that I've really been wanting to build up.
That's an amazing skill. Pianists, keyboardists that have that left hand bass like really solid. That's great.
Yeah. So I've been doing a couple gigs like that, and then just a few things here and there. Not anything steady because I don't want to commit because I want to make sure I can do my schoolwork, which I could barely get finished as it is. So yeah, I just do things here and there. It's freelancing at the moment.
Gotcha. What motivates you as an artist to keep pursuing, keep persevering?
That's a good question. I think just music is such an amazing thing, and when you hear somebody who's really able to express something, it's like it can't be put into words, but it expresses something universal. Like we all know, like you hear a human voice singing something and everyone feels moved.
Okay.
So that's like that mystical thing that we're all trying to get at. Music is one way to get there. So
okay.
Yeah, so I guess since music is the thing I know how to do,
and that motivates
that's
you?
how I'm going to try to get there. Yeah.
Okay. So on the subject of that, for example, I have go-to songs that kind of pick me up, and one of them is School Days from Stanley Clarke.
Okay.
What about yourself? It's like you're in a little down and you want to pop it in and you feel sort of picks you up musically. Just your mood.
That's a good question. I often look to vocalists because I love that smooth, I love to hear a good vocalist really sing, like Donny Hathaway or somebody.
Okay.
Just hearing that and hearing the tone and because I feel like it's the purest form of musical expression. So I'll probably listen to some soul singers. Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful. Hindy, what would you say to the young, up-and-coming lady who wants to aspire to do what you're doing? A young student wants to be a great, sought-after pianist like yourself. What would you say to her?
I would say, confidence is important, and I guess that's what I would say. That's something I struggled with, like, there aren't many girls here when I was starting out.
Okay.
Is this right? Should I be doing this? So confidence and also focus on the music.
Okay.
That's what
would you say that you were discouraged, though?
I would say that most people were pretty encouraging.
Okay.
Most people I ran into, there would be a few that would not be encouraging, but I'm sure everybody has stories like that. But it was more of an internal sort of, what is that, unconscious bias against myself, maybe, as a woman.
Sure.
So I would say, try to just get to the music, and that will, if you focus on the music, that will take you where you need to go.
Can't do any better than that, Hindy. Hindy, thank you so much for coming out today. We appreciate your words of wisdom and your story.
Thank you for having me.
Blessings to you and
you
best
as well,
of
Dante
luck.
Fire. Okay.